Hello, my name is John Michael Foulger. I'm represented by Mary Liz Management. I've been an actor for many years, stage, television, film. That's pretty much it about me. Well, interesting anyway. On to you, Emma.
Hello, I'm Emma Spurgin Hussey, and I'm an actor and occasional writer and director, and have done workshops and things like that in the past. I am represented by Teresa of Filmcast Cornwall and South West, and I can think of nothing interesting to say about myself. I'm tremendously sorry. This is Rory.
Hello, I'm Rory Wilton. I'm a film, television, stage voiceover radio actor. I've been in the business for nearly 30 years. I'm also represented by Teresa at Filmcast Cornwall and South West. And interesting things about me is I'm dyslexic and a super recognizer. Right, Stewart.
Hello, I'm Stewart Rome, also represented by Mary Liz Management like John. And I came back to acting 3 years ago after nearly 30 years out of it. And I'm having a great time. But for my bread and butter work, I also advise people on intellectual property and copyright. So that's what I do in my spare time. Over to you, Catherine.
Hello,
of course.
I'm Catherine Adams, and for the past 20-something years, I've predominantly been a professional actor and voiceover artist. Also have professional experience as a script writer, script supervisor, editor, proofreader, and also as a director and casting director for both stage and screen. And if you wanted to get in touch with me, my agent is the lovely Rollo at RWG Management, or you can have a look at my website, even if you just wanted to be nosy. It's catherineadams.org. And over to you, my dear.
Nick, would you like to introduce yourself as you're the person on the block?
Yeah, sure, no worries. Hi there. My name is Nick Goundry. My main experience is in film journalism, specialising in film and TV, and I also do some logistics work, helping filmmakers to make movies and TV shows.
And I'm Angela Elliott, and I'm a screenwriter of about 30 odd years, starting in documentaries, drama, film, also novels, and there's loads of interesting things that I've done, including working in the semiconductor industry as a process engineer. So we are going to read today Your Time Is Up by Wendy Applebaum. And scroll down. Fade in, exterior Kennedy Johnson family home morning. A young couple pull up to a house. They get out and the man opens the back door of the car. A newborn child cries. Reaching in, the woman picks up the baby and she and her husband enter their home. Interior Kennedy Johnson family home morning. Margaret Johnson, early 30s, sits in a rocking chair, gazing lovingly at her daughter Kennedy.
Your dad and I are going to make sure you never feel the way our parents made us feel. You are going to grow up to be a confident and successful woman.
Joel Johnson, early 30s, sits on the floor next to them.
We're going to guide your every step and be there for everything. Wherever you are, we'll be right there.
Montage, an extremely upbeat song plays in the background. We see Kennedy's parents in bed. Our mother has her glass on, reading a book, helping your kids avoid all discomfort. We see Kennedy as a young girl standing at the front of her class, hands shaking as she tries to deliver a report. She passes out. Out of nowhere, her father runs in and delivers a speech for her. We see Kennedy standing with a group of Girl Scouts, the head scout pointing at the number of chocolate bars that have to be sold, showing that every girl has to sell 10 boxes. Suddenly, Kennedy starts to feel woozy and faint. We see her parents driving her around in the car and the father wearing the Girl Scout uniform knocking on doors. We see Kennedy asleep while her mother sits at her computer typing an assignment for her. Her daughter wakes up for a moment and her mother mouths the words, "Sorry, go back to sleep." We see Kennedy in high school, the teacher dropping a test with a D- on it. We then see the parents in the office with the principal pointing to the grade until finally the principal changes it. We see Kennedy at university receiving a bad grade on a paper from a professor. We then see the mother on the phone talking to the professor putting the phone down while mother rambles on. We see Kennedy standing outside of a college campus with a boy holding flowers. The mother suddenly appears and shakes her head and scrunches up her face. He slinks away. We see Kennedy's father accompanying her to an office and setting up her desk and organizing for her. Employees walk by, staring in amazement at Kennedy. Kennedy smiles, oblivious to it all. We see Kennedy at a holiday Christmas party, people standing around with drinks. She arrives with her parents. End of montage. Interior, Kennedy Johnson's apartment. Morning, Kennedy Johnson, mid-30s, a bundle of neurosis, all wrapped up in a cute little package, takes a long look in the mirror, forced smile, and heads out.
Today's the day.
Interior, HR agency, office, continuous. She walks down the hall towards her office. Her co-worker smiles sympathetically. One co-worker catches her attention. Hang in there, Kennedy. Puzzled, she shakes her head and keeps walking towards her office. Gary, mid-20s, the bitchy office intern, stares at her with a condescending smile. Kennedy returns his phony smile with one of her own. John?
I did it, but I was muted. But bye, Miss Johnson.
You mean good morning?
Gary is long gone. Interior, Kennedy's office, continuous, books and files packed up and in boxes with a note on top. Please give your employee pass to the human resources representative. Good luck. Tammy, mid-40s, a human resource representative. A human resources person, a perky woman with big hair, stands at the door, bright smile, lipstick on teeth. Hi, Kennedy. Guess you've heard about the reorgan.
Actually, I hadn't.
Your position is no longer required.
My position only.
Hey, I love your suit. Did you get that wholesale?
What do you mean no longer required? Is this about the Robson account? The clients loved me, aside from that little episode.
Interior, boardroom day. A group of well-dressed executives sit around the table, a large screen at the front. Kennedy stands at a podium about to begin. She looks out at the room, all eyes on her.
We've prepared an overview of how this pill is doing on the market.
How do we work around the side effects like anal leakage? And what about the strange odor from our pilot participants, noted emanating from behind their knees? How do we handle the marketing around that?
Well, I think...
What's the pitch? Come on, I haven't got all day. If you can't handle it, another boutique will.
Kennedy's eyes begin to flutter, eyelids too heavy to stay open. Head goes plonk on the podium. Concern around the table until a woman, early 30s, puts her hand up.
She's fine. She does this all the time. Where should we go for lunch?
Oh,
We don't like to think of this as firing, more of a focus on helping you to transition to something more suitable, maybe where you're not counted on.
I don't understand.
Exactly. Kennedy, in complete panic, grabs her phone.
Wait, hold on. I need to call my parents. I've never been fired, so I don't know what to do.
What?
Dad, pick up.
Speaking of pick up, how about if we pick up the pace? It's Gary's baby shower. We're all super excited for her. Did you want to chip in for a gift before you leave? Kennedy remains in place, frozen, the sound of the phone ringing.
You.
Bewildered, she's moving to the door. Anywho, I'll have to walk you out of the building now. Oh, and could you leave the post-its? We love our post-its here. Shocked, Kennedy is escorted to the elevator. Suddenly she passes out. Interior, psychiatrist's office, afternoon. Behind the desk, Sandy, the receptionist, late 30s, with distinctive horn-rimmed glasses, chats busily on the phone and chews gum.
So I told him, no way, I'm just not that into you.
Looks up as Kennedy enters the office. With a smile, she acknowledges her presence.
Just have a seat. It'll be a few minutes.
Well,
I mean, like, I'm really an actress and a model too. Well, this pays the bills. OMG, I cannot imagine doing this in 5 years. Don't even joke about that.
Sandy Starks glances over at Kennedy, who sits biting her nails.
No offense.
Office door opens. Dr. Kurtz, mid-50s, laid-back demeanour, simple clothing with an air of absent-minded professor.
Good morning, Kennedy.
She turns to him, dead eyes, holds up a magazine with a cover shot, fax machines, the wave of the future.
seriously?
Interior Dr. Kurtz's office, continuous shag carpet, velvet furniture, and a long couch decorate the room. Kennedy takes her seat, grabs the candy on the table next to her, defiant.
It happened again.
You mean you passed out?
I got fired. And then everything went black.
Did you get hurt this time?
Just my ego. I don't understand what happened. I thought I was doing such a good job.
Weren't you expecting a promotion?
I was. I mean, I thought that's what was going to happen when I woke up this morning.
But that wasn't the reality. What do you think happened?
I mean, I only do that when I'm under pressure and I have to deliver on something. Otherwise, I'm really good when I'm just seated at my desk.
Doesn't your job require you to pitch clients?
Yes, so what's the point?
Well, if you every time you have to pitch to a client and you're under the gun and fall asleep, you could see how that could be a problem.
I guess. But look, my parents found that job for me. Some friend of my dad's from university. Usually they know what's best for me.
I'm going to stop you right there. Don't you know what's best for you?
Don't understand.
How can they know what's best for you if you don't take that first step in deciding?
Can I go back to my first story? Anyway, I tried to call my dad while it was happening, like maybe he could stop it. It was an absolute nightmare.
You tried to phone your dad while you were getting fired?
Yeah.
Do you remember we discussed how maybe your parents interfering in your life just keeps you stuck?
I don't know. I guess, maybe.
Kennedy, whose job is it? Yours or your parents?
Well, I mean, I tell him and my mum everything that's going on. They should have warned me.
How's that?
Look, I don't know what you're saying, and I need to do things on my own, but like, it's hard. They've always done things for me. I don't want to disappoint them.
Again, you keep using the word disappoint. Is that yours or theirs? You know, you talked about this, and we've talked about this, and you know what you need to do.
I've never done anything on my own.
No better time than the present.
Well, I don't want to disappoint them. I'm scared if I do it on my own without them, and worse, I'm wrong, it will be a catastrophe.
How is that?
Maybe, I don't know. Why is he taking me back?
Did we not just discuss how it's maybe time for you to do things on your own? Why are you worrying about your dad texting back? It's over, you're fired. Now what?
Okay, that's our 10 pages. So I'm going to be strict here.
It's not though, Angela, because their first page was 10, I think, wasn't it?
No, I've just
No.
checked that.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry.
No, your first page was, the first page of text was
I thought they had the title. Okay.
No, then 2 was like the second page of text. Yeah, I did check that.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Okay, who wants to kick off? Stewart, what's your thoughts?
Okay. I'm not sure what I thought about this. I didn't think it was very dynamic, if I'm honest, and didn't really bring me in as an audience to understand or get enthusiastic about the character, if I'm honest. It's kind of a classic sort of helicopter parent setup. And I thought there was far too much description for a start in the first couple of pages that you sort of had to get through. And I know I can see what the writer was trying to do, but I just felt there was a lot of description to read through. I thought it got more interesting when Kennedy was being interviewed by Dr. Kurtz, if I'm honest, and things were starting to come out there that were a bit more interesting. So I'd like to see where it goes and where the story's going, because I don't get an impression at the moment. Is she going to become really independent and fight against her parents' control, or is what's going to happen? So, but yeah.
Okay,
that's what I thought, really.
That's great, thank you. Catherine?
I'm not sure. I was just trying to read back through the bits in case I missed it. There were a couple of American accents in there. Was it set in America and I've missed that? Or apologies if not, but I don't know.
Hard to tell. I think it's another one of those. I believe it is the States, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where the
American
names.
references, I think.
Mom, Girl
Yeah.
Scouts, I
Yeah,
think probably.
Or is it Canada?
It might be.
It's WGC is Canada, isn't it?
Ooh.
Well, sorry, but
Russia's
basically,
Guild of
I didn't.
Russia's Guild of Canada.
Not sure.
didn't catch on to-
Either way, another incident where we need to know where it's set, really.
Yeah.
So that was one of my first points is where and when would be handy. Also, the ages and difference in time between the montages, obviously not visually, but in the script we need to know, because that will determine quite a lot how far through the life it's going or whatever. There were a couple of typos in there, so it might need a bit of a proofread. But it was beginning to be interesting. I think I agree with Stewart. I think it's probably started at the wrong point. Obviously it's just the first 10 pages, but it may have been able to draw us more in if you started with the doctor perhaps, or another point. I don't know. It was a bit, I don't know. It felt a bit just like the first bit was chucked in at the end of the writing, like they'd finished and changed their mind sort of thing. It felt a bit rushed, but I can see the characters are being quite interesting. So I'd like to see what happens next.
Oh, thank you. Nick, what's your thoughts on this?
I think at the moment it's struggling to find a focal point for the story. There's a kind of emerging story of this young woman who is pretty much completely reliant on her parents. But I think we've had a lot of situations in these first few pages, but it's struggling to hone in on an actual like narrative, which is kind of focused and interesting. I mean, you know, it's interesting in terms of situations, but it's not developing into a narrative at the moment. I think it's just starting to, perhaps at the end of these 10 pages, but I think that needs to come in earlier. But I think part of the issue at the moment is that it is quite novelized in places. There's a lot of detail in there that we don't really need. You know, kind of everyday movements and so on. And yeah, so I think perhaps what's going to happen from what we're reading at the moment, it feels like what's going to happen between maybe 10 and kind of page 10 and 20 is going to start initiating the story. So I think whatever happens in those pages probably needs to be brought forward to maybe page 5 or 6, like perhaps even earlier than that. And there also needs to be, I think, kind of more of an awareness maybe of the difference between what the director is going to be doing and what the role of the writer as well. I think it can be a bit problematic sometimes to script montages, because the montage is a director's decision essentially. So if you're saying we see this and we see this and we see this a lot, then it's straying a little bit too close to a shooting script, you know, and so that, you know, that they're kind of rewriting that in a way that suggests the visuals rather than stating them is going to be, I would suggest, part of the next draft. So yeah, those are sort of my initial thoughts on that.
Cool, thank you for that. John, wake up, John.
I was awake. I was just looking at something on the screen
Oh,
to go back to what. Yeah. First thing, always say where and when,
mm,
because it dictates an awful lot about what the rest of the script is going to read. I haven't read through. I'm still not sure what it is, whether it's a comedy, a tragedy, whatever. I personally would have started, as has previously been said, at the doctor's, and instead of having a montage, have the doctor pretty much throw in your parents followed you through university, your parents followed you through school, because you get to get all of that in one page, so less than a minute of the professor highlighting it, and that would have been the first 3 pages done and dusted. Gary seems pointless. It's a throwaway line, but I don't know.
I mean, he might come in after 10 pages, though. He might.
Yes, he may do. You know, maybe we'll get a flashback and we'll find out who Gary is. Is this literally all in her head? Are her parents already dead? I don't know. It's just got too many questions and far too few answers. Sorry, that's pretty much all I can say.
okay, cool. Thank you. Emma.
Oh, I've crossed off all the things that other people have said to save time. I do wonder about the style. What is the style? You know, is it very stylized? Is it kind of a bit like I don't know, Queen's Gambit or like Wes Anderson-ish? I can imagine saying there's something really 50s about it, which is quite curious. But I think it's sort of hoping for quite a decent budget in order to do things like montages, because I'm just thinking about you know, however many numbers of Kennedy at all her different ages you're going to need, for example, and I think, just in no particular order, you know, the montage is expected to be pre-titles. I'd also thought the same thing about starting in the doctors and maybe the odd little flashback. It's difficult, isn't it, that thing about show don't tell, but then also how quickly you can get something covered just in a line. So it's always balancing that. I would say try to keep consistency with what you call the characters. She's called Margaret, and then later on she's the mother. And don't call people, please, the woman and the man, because it's hard to invest in somebody who it feels like
will hate you.
Yeah, it just feels like a writer hasn't invested, and it also feels like it's going to be hard for us to sort of sell it to anybody as sort of a job we've done, because it just sounds like it's background. So please give them a name.
I was in the film. What did you play? The man.
The man, yeah, it's better than a man, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, just I think some of the writing, I think not that it's written in a very like Baroque style or anything, but I think it's overwritten in terms of there's too much. There's, I mean, as Nick was saying, you know, we get sympathetic smile, he nods his head, things like that. But which, you know, trust actors, please trust actors to have instinct and sense and to be able to create. Otherwise, we're kind of puppets if we're just carrying out the motions that you've seen. Suggest things, but don't have to micromanage things. I'm just looking at some of the bits where you could just cut back. The parents at the very beginning could say less and still imply that they want to wrap her in cotton wool. I'm just thinking about like the structure of gags. I think there is fun to be had in this, actually. You know, if this woman isn't fainting but she's just falling asleep, it's a sort of you know, kind of elective narcolepsy. We might be able to have fun with when she does fall asleep, and if she sort of snores loudly and dribbles and things like that in appropriate moments, we could have some sort of humor there. I mean, the gag about the man saying about anal leakage and then they get a strange smell behind their knees. I think you've got to think about the structure of gags and how they build up, because you go all in with anal leakage and then sort of a slight whiff behind the knees is a small thing, you know, in the step there. So I think, you know, structure jokes. Another boutique I don't understand, a boutique pill making agency. I was a bit puzzled. Things like dad pick up, we don't need that because an actor can convey that with a look. We can see dad written on the phone. And I'm just thinking, you know, and I know that you pick it up with and speaking of pick up, which doesn't, there's something wrong with that gag that's not quite working yet at the moment. and just things like, where are you? What do I do? She can show that in her face. She really can, very easily. And there's lots of little scenes, lots of one-line actors to begin with. And so we're having to invest in people, thinking, is this an important person? Is this a storyline? Is this a thread? And we're a bit like a sort of dog having loads of sticks chucked to us. And I think it's maybe just a bit kind of, I don't know where to focus, and just help us out there, help us thread our way through, I would say. Bash up the lines you do decide to keep. Can you show me page 7, Rory, please? Printed page 7. Where are we? There's a bit where she says, down a little bit, lost in her thoughts. That's it. I mean, I only do that when I'm under pressure and have to deliver on something. Otherwise, I'm really good when I'm just seated at my desk. And I just wonder whether, you know, we don't need full sentences a lot of the time. You know, people interrupt themselves all the time. And, you know, they tail off. And I just think there's a lot of full sentences. And I just think we could have things like, I mean, I only do that when, otherwise I'm really good. And just, you know, we could just cut back.
By that line, actually, I thought because you read Lost in Her Thoughts, and then when I was reading the dialogue, I was thinking, no, this is me talking to myself, not lost in my thoughts. So be careful with the description of what you're,
Yes, I think so.
Because I realised I was reading it wrong as soon as I'd finished, but
I
finished reading it.
Yeah. And just things like, you know, that wasn't the reality. And but where are we? What else? Yeah, somewhere around having to be detailed again, because we hear she tried to phone her dad, and then it's like, I tried to phone my dad. And, you know, we just can sort of cut back on things just to credit us with some intelligence. We love that when you do that as an audience. We love it when it's sort of like, oh yeah, she did try and phone her dad. And you know, and he picks up on sort of like, did you try and phone your dad again, or something like that. And you know, we can have some progress with that being mentioned. Yeah, and as Catherine says, go through, there's a bit of wayward spelling and punctuation, and I don't think it's an across the pond thing. I think it's just a kind of, yeah, bit of a checking thing. But yeah, I think there is potential fun to be had. I don't know, you know, what is it? Is it a long film, a short film, a play? I'm just not quite sure what it is. It's always helpful for us to gauge what it is that you're intending to do with these 10 pages. But yeah, that was a long a long reply, but I hope it's useful.
I'd assumed that it was TV, just from the way it read. It's just says TV series to me. I think it's of the ilk of it's a young woman coming of age thing, finding her feet in society, finding her independence from her parents. There's been a lot of this sort of thing, you know. Ugly Betty sort of sprang to mind, the kind of the officey stuff. I think if I was a commissioning editor, I'd read the first 3 pages and just run a mile. Your first montage is going to cost an absolute fortune to film, and it's your first kind of thing that people are going to go, oh right, she grew up, and that's it. that you're going to spend $1 million on this incredible sequence. Oh yeah, so she was young and then she was now older. Okay, so yeah, I think yeah, cut to the chase, grab us in the first few pages. At the moment, I think a commissioning editor is just going to no, forget it, and I think your audience will go, okay, what's this? But would they stay long enough into the drama of the story to actually stay with it? So yeah, grab them in the first few pages. So, Angela.
It's nice to take everybody's thoughts in, because then I find that whatever notes I've made then sort of coalesce into a blob of something else sometimes. But as you were talking, Rory, and as other people have said, I'm starting to think, does she have any kind of life of her own? I mean, someone that age, if you've been mollycoddled by your parents your entire life, even if you are a daddy's girl and daddy always comes to the rescue, you know, and even if they're loaded and they're always there, you know, have this car, darling, or, you know, they're always there and they're providing, there's still gonna be something in her going, oh, I just want my own life, you know. And isn't that the conflict really that we would then kind of buy into on the character? And I don't really see any conflict in this character at the moment internally within herself. And it would be great if it was opened at the doctor's office where she's wrestling with her conflict. You know, I mean, yeah, she's got this narcolepsy thing where she falls asleep, but that's almost like abdicating of responsibility for her life, isn't it? The minute anybody asks her or tells her to do something herself, or she has to take responsibility for her life, she kind of checks out. And you know, it would be just really good if all of that came in sort of sort of up front, you know, bam, we're in her conflict, her internal conflict. The other thing is, yeah, the montage is just too complicated. It's as I was reading it, I was thinking, these are whole scenes. This isn't just a montage, these are whole scenes.
That's season 1.
These are like, this is, yeah. So yeah, I was just like, I'm worrying. I worry also, I have got a note here, Dr. Kurtz seemed too long, that the scene there also does drag on. It needs some dynamism to it, doesn't it? It needs some kind of punch. And that maybe comes back to the fact that not all the dialogue is required, you know, as you said, as others have said. That's my note there. That's on my note there. Okay, and the other thing is just little format things, you know, interjected lines of action between dialogue which aren't necessary. Somebody said about that. And the other thing is sounds need to be in caps. I'm not going to go on about format because it's generally okay, but yeah, there's just.
Can I just say a thing when you're finished, Angela?
Yeah, no, carry on. I'm finished. I've gone through my notes.
Okay,
said everything.
Brilliant. Yeah, that was a dash, not an ellipsis, wasn't it? Because I cut in. I was just thinking about something that you said, John, about the parents. Did you say something about they didn't exist?
No, I said, is it possible?
Yeah,
They're just in her mind.
yeah, because I was just thinking that might it become more interesting if she'd had a completely different background and we begin to discover that she's inventing these parents who doted upon her and you know, wouldn't let her do anything for herself, and actually either they're dead or you know, there was a completely
never
different...
existed in the first place.
Yeah, there was just a really hateful you know, childhood that was completely grim and filmed in different colors and things like that. You know, just I can imagine something slightly Tim Burton-esque happening here, but I just wonder whether there might be some fun to be had in that, because at the moment there isn't subtext, is there? And I just wonder whether we could have some fun.
What was going through my mind was, when she goes into this narcolepsy, is that something that she's kind of learnt from her youth, that when her parents started to get toxic, she just switched off?
Yeah.
The
narcolepsy is reality and the rest isn't. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do say in the first page when Kennedy is a kid that the parents suggest that they had a really kind of rough childhood themselves, which I mean, that in itself is something that would need to be either expanded on later in the story, or there's no point having it there. So there's but then, I mean, that's kind of that's what it's kind of leaning towards the moment. But then there's also, I mean, like with the other issues there are the montage at the moment, there's also, I think there's a bit of a tussle between comedy and drama. Yeah. And as much as you have these quite odd comic beat, I think they're intended as comic beats in the montage where you've got the parents sort of jumping in, although it's not quite clear if that's intended as like kind of, it's been said before, like a kind of Wes Anderson style, you know, doesn't quite make sense in the real world, but it's funny, so it should be in here, or whether that's that they're actually on like in that place with her and they're going to jump in when she's in
what's
trouble.
Happened, this is a big jump here. I think she's just put all the backstory in at the front. That's what she's done.
Okay.
This is this character's backstory, and she's just gone, I'm just shoving this all in here. In actual fact, you see it in novels as well, where you get people who are writing novels who don't really quite understand story and how it and how it evolves, the complexity of and so what they do is they explain everything
Chronologically.
to get to the start of the story,
Yeah.
without realizing that you need to be taking that stuff at the front and salting your story with it along the way.
Yeah.
I think
didn't very well say it, but it felt like it was shoved in at the end when they finished the writing and then gone, oh, I better put this up there.
I need to explain some of this, how she gets to that point. Yeah.
Right.
It felt misplaced.
Ergo me saying too many questions, very few answers.
Yeah. But the questions, it's good to have questions.
Yeah, there need to be questions at this stage, but it's
But-
whether you think they're going to be answered.
Exactly. And where they are is important. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hope that's been helpful. Please just carry on writing. That's the main thing you should take away from this.
Definitely.
It's
Absolutely.
it's really important.